This is the Captain's Harpoon. It is an exotic glaive designed by a Patreon viewer named Bursh117 with an exotic perk that gives it a lunge attack. And this is a normal glaive, which, with the right setup, can perfectly imitate his idea. In fact, this trick might be just a bit too good for his idea. Oh, I'm not gonna make it back, am I? Oh my gosh, I'm gonna make it back! I have taken 5 of your exotic ideas and have fleshed them out and put some art to them. These ideas are from our Patreon, our Discord, and the YouTube comments, so make sure you're subscribed, leave a like, and comment down below to see if your idea is good enough to make it into one of these videos. But before we talk about how to do this awesome tech with glaives discovered by a much smaller YouTube channel that you should definitely check out after this, I want to show off 4 of your other awesome ideas that I think, with my limited experience in game design and my extensive experience in Destiny 2, are good enough to possibly make it into the game with some good adjustments. Why not start with another glaive idea? Glaives are designed around being a versatile utility weapon, so number 5 on our list takes that idea and pushes it even further. This idea is from Andromeda. It is called the Druids Wrath. The flavor text reads, "The wrath of an ancient people for a new age." This is a kinetic glaive with the exotic perk Druidic Touch. Opponents defeated spawn a soul of nature that, when picked up by you or allies, grant them resistance and increased mobility for a short duration. Glaive projectile kills create a vampiric soul that slowly deals damage to nearby enemies and heal you and nearby allies. And the intrinsic trait is called Nature's Blessing. Ability final blows will grant nearby allies and you increased ability regeneration for a short duration, and stasis is weaker against you and allies. It also has Impulse Amplifier. This idea is quite interesting, but there is a reason I didn't choose this as our number 1 spot or a bit higher on our list. The first issue that it encounters, it has a difficulty struggling between depth and complexity. Depth versus complexity is a game design principle where you want to have something that on its surface looks very easy and is quite easy to understand, especially if a player's never played your game before, but nevertheless has a lot of interesting things you can do with the weapon or with whatever mechanic you're designing. This exotic has a lot of depth, but it's at the cost of a very high complexity. To a newer player, this is a huge wall of text that they have to chew through in order to understand, and maybe even in the game what might be worse is even while they're using it, they might not truly understand exactly what is all happening for them. However, as a counterpoint to this, the fact that this is a kinetic glaive is a perfect example of a great depth without adding a lot of complexity, because we don't have a kinetic glaive, so this would be able to fill in spots without making the player have to think extra hard about what they're doing. In the same vein, it has a kind of problem I call the shotgun design, where it adds so much of so many different things that it's not able to hone in on a specific thing and risks pushing out other exotics that might try to compete in the glaive category. This is a similar thing we've seen with the Lorentz driver, which, as you probably are aware if you've played PvP within the last few seasons, can be a really difficult gun to counter because it does so much. But with all those buffs you are now taking in with your new exotic glaive, you want to add a bit of survivability. You're going to need something that allows you to best capitalize on everything. Why not draw fire from your enemies to yourself with All Eyes on Me? This replaces your barricade, but it also shortens the cooldown. It has 2 different modes you can select from the in-game screen. You can either do Overconfident, which increases your chance of enemies targeting you and increases your damage taken, but also increases the damage that you deal from all sources, or you can choose Attention Seeker, which increases the chances for enemies to attack you dramatically, but also dramatically increases your damage absorption, but lowers your damage output. This idea has a few different issues than our glaive idea, something our featured exotic idea avoids pretty well. First of all, design space. It's very easy for this to have either too much power or too little power, and it's hard to find a good medium that makes this sit in this spot that makes it feel interesting, powerful, worth the exotic slot, without either doing nothing or doing too much. It's hard to balance. If you give a 120 hand cannon a bit too much of a damage bonus, it's very easily going to be able to 2-tap Guardians, or think something like your Dead Man's Tale two-tapping people from way down in the back of the map can be a big problem for that increased damage. However, if you don't give it enough of a bonus damage, then it's not worth it at all. The damage reduction is definitely more fitting for Titans. It's a fantastic idea that plays into that Titan theme excellently, but with those design limitations, that's why it ends up as number 4 on my list. This next idea has an even bigger problem with design space and balance, but its idea is so unique I know I had to feature it. This is an exotic void trace rifle called the Pause Button by Cygnus Valentine. The intrinsic trait is called Hold Up. Landing consecutive damage on a target builds up a charge with the weapon that once fully charged, about 30 to 45 shots, will cause this weapon to pause the target, freezing them in time but making them unkillable, essentially immune. This freeze will last for 15 seconds, and the exotic perk is called Okay, Now Go. Attacking a target with a few more rounds of this weapon releases them and deals a large chunk of damage as if they were catching up with time. This idea is certainly unique, but it can easily be oppressive. What's great about this exotic is that it very carefully avoids it being an issue in PvP without explicitly putting text that reduces its overall power level in PvP. Because it takes at least 30 shots to trigger this effect, this weapon will never be capable of freezing anything other than supers because a normal Guardian, even with body shots, will die after about 20 hits. However, the veteran PvE players already can see this being a problem with this exotic for encounters where you need to prevent a certain enemy from getting from one place to another. But there's an even bigger issue that our designer may have missed, and that's that this weapon's utility is very similar to the Aegir Scepter Catalyst. But what's worse is that the Agris, I think, does it better. The Agris has more around it to make sure that it stays balanced while still having a lot of utility baked into it. And you know, if you've ever seen Agris with its Catalyst procced, it can be a big damage dealer and a great crowd control tool in PvE. So this would struggle to find its spot outside of it just being explicitly better, which is not what we want either. So by now we've all seen that exotic ideas can be really hard to balance, and that's why it's better to stick to a single, well-executed, simple idea than to try to create an intricate and complicated system. Our number 2 idea comes so close to doing exactly that, and ironically would be a fantastic combo for our featured exotic idea. This is the Dark Knight. Gotta love that it's flavored around Batman, already getting points for interesting. Its exotic perk is as simple as, after using your triple jump, you will start to glide for a short time. While you are gliding, you take 10% less damage and deal 10% more damage. After gliding, you turn invisible for 5 seconds. It's a simple idea, but those last 2 lines completely destroy its chances of hitting the number 1 spot. And I know that this creator didn't put those 2 lines in there absent-mindedly. Their goal, I can guarantee, was to make sure that this movement-based exotic still had a place within PvE without breaking it in PvP. But there's a problem. Not only are you able to get invisibility quite literally for free, but the free damage bonus and resistances are incredibly dangerous, but worse than that, I think Bungie would agree, this doesn't fit the Hunter's design style. Weapon damage bonuses aren't really a thing for Hunters. In fact, the one time they did have access to damage bonuses in the form of Whisper of Hedrons on Stasis Hunter, it was nerfed a few months later. None of their subclasses even give direct access to bonus damage for their weapons, and neither do their exotics except for 3. Do you know what they are? Fortunately, this idea is easy enough to fix. All we have to do is remove those last 2 lines of increased bonus damage and damage resistance, and make that invisibility require you to perhaps be in the air for a certain period of time before getting the invisibility, or maybe have it consume our class ability energy while we do it. And finally, the featured exotic for this list is the Cap's Harpoon from, once again, Bursch 117. The flavor text reads, "I know not all what may be coming, but be what it will, I'll go to it laughing." The intrinsic perk is White Whale, intrinsic unstoppable stun, increased damage against strong enemies and guardians that build up with consecutive hits. And the exotic perk is called Vengeful Thrust. Consuming a full shield charge from this weapon allows the user to temporarily lunge forward at a target. What's great about this exotic is that it's first of all easy to understand. For any player who sees this, they can already get an idea of how this is going to work in game. It adds a unique mechanic that has already had a tried and true parallel. This is very similar to Eager Edge that we have on swords right now, and it still holds on to the roots of the glaive archetype of being a utility-based item. And it also adds value to higher tier PvE activities with that intrinsic unstoppable effect. While that idea is cool, how the heck am I doing it in the game already? This tech is called Glaive Skating. I found this through a fantastic channel called Selfu. Link to them and all of the artists are in the video's description. All you need to do to perform this technique is to grab a Mask of Bacchus on a Stasis Hunter, any glaive, and a nice open runway. From there, it's as simple as canceling your Bacchus dodge with your glaive's melee. Add a fast jump input to carry your momentum, and voila! You have turned your hunter into a cannonball. Just make sure you aren't aimed at any walls when you're inputting the combo, or it's a fast way to architect kills. If you're struggling to get this to work, remember that the timing isn't necessarily precise, but it's very fast. But for more help, be sure to check the original video in the description where I found it as well. Another awesome round of exotic ideas. Make sure you like, subscribe, and leave your idea below. Bless your faces, and deuces.